Boom, you gotta love those intros.
Right? Did it seem like it slowed down in the middle? I swear there was like 3 seconds that seemed longer than the rest of the second. It kind of threw me off. Well, cool. Yeah, let's go ahead and kick us off. So, yeah, I'm Jason Downey. I'm security consultant at Red Siege, and with me is
Corey Overstreet, also a security consultant here at Red Siege.
And we've got practical people hacking. We're gonna be going through just some different concepts on phishing, vishing, and then doing some physical pen tests. So I guess Corey, why don't you kick us off for our first section here? We'll dive right in.
Yeah, so when we talk about phishing, we kind of categorize it in the two categories. We do the low and slow, like the red team style, where it's very targeted, more in line with something like spear phishing. And then we've got something more akin to pure phishing, where clients just want to know how many people are going to click the links, how many people are going to open the email or open any attachments, and how many people are going to submit credentials or execute, whatever payload we have that's been kind of preordained for that. But usually with phishing campaigns, the first most important thing, a lot of times clients will ask us, try and find as many targets as you can. So, of course, like anything, we start with our open source intelligence. We start looking for the email domain for our target. So one of the easiest ways to find it usually is just go through the target's website. A lot of times they'll have a contact at domain.com. They'll have points of contact with actual employee names, just however they have it set up. But typically that'll give you your first indicator for the email domain name. Go ahead.
So yeah, can you talk about, I guess, some of the advantages of doing like a low and slow versus just like a pure phishing? Like what are some things that our clients would want to gain from doing one of those either type of test?
Oh yeah. So with pure phishing, we are just testing the employee's response. So we are making sure that all the training they've taken, all the advisories they've been given, are kind of sinking in, and they're stopping and considering, should they be clicking on this? Should they be opening these attachments? Should they be visiting the websites that we've set up? Whereas with low and slow, a lot of times we're more checking for, again, with the employee, but also we are checking to make sure that their email filters are catching us. We're checking, okay, so employee A gets suspicious. We're checking to see, are they reporting that email to their security team? We're also checking to see if, how long it takes the blue team, once they've been notified, how long it takes them to start quarantining the emails, blocking our domain, and generally stopping us at that point, or just seeing if we can actually get access through that, depending on the test.
Cool.
So, go ahead.
So, yeah, and I know we kind of skipped over in the beginning, right? But as we're going along some of this stuff, if you guys have questions, ask. Like, we're going to take turns monitoring chat and try to catch them, as they come up here. That being said, I guess I'll go ahead and jump into our next section here. You mentioned sort of like building that user list, right? Until we have targets, we don't know how to send emails to, or who to send emails to. So, one of the first things that I always check is I immediately go to LinkedIn. There's a really cool tool called LinkedIn, INT. I actually forgot to give JCon a link for that. I'll throw it in chat afterwards. But it's a really great way to gather different contacts that work for an organization. Typically, what I'll do is I have a sock puppet account that's got a bunch of, it looks like a real tech person who's doing techie things and went to school and all that jazz. And I'll start just adding people from the company, to get like that, that second and third connection, which allows you to see more of their info. And then, I'll run LinkedIn and I'll start pulling, employee names that way.
There's also a tool that you can use with Burp, right?
It's just gather contacts thing is what it's called.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that
Yep.
one, you don't even have to touch LinkedIn. You can just go through search engine results, right?
Yep. Yes, sir. And then there's also some specific tools that people can use, and they're really that's like marketing stuff. You can check like hunter.io and then phonebook.cz, and they're both designed for marketers to send out sales emails and cold calls, or the email equivalent of a cold call, right? So those are great to get huge amounts of email lists, and always definitely when you're doing these engagements and building your user list is look up previously breached credentials. There's a site called Dhashed that covers a whole lot of stuff. So I always go there and search and see what it comes back with. So yeah, so once we have kind of that user list built, right? We have our targets in place. We gotta decide, right? Like, what are we gonna send to these people? How are we gonna target them? What are we gonna talk about? How are we gonna, quote unquote, manipulate them into clicking our link? And we refer to that as a pretext. So one of the first things that I always check is the company website. Do they have a news section? Do they have an about us? Do they have like a current events? Check their social media. Are they posting on LinkedIn? Are they involved in the community? Can you check like local news articles to see if are they throwing an event in the community? Did a local news event talk about something that happened to one of their buildings, or an improvement or a change? So you can use all those things to kind of like leverage your way in to build pretext.
Yeah, something else with the pretext too is a lot of companies like to advertise. When they do charitable things, they raise money for charity, or just some award that they received for in whatever year, and that's another pretty popular thing that we look for.
So yeah, so I guess that dives in. Do you want to talk about like a couple of the, I guess, specific pretexts that you and I have ran together, and what those looked like and the tools that we used?
Yeah, sure. So a lot of times with companies nowadays, when you send an email, unless you're sending from inside their own domain, it attaches a banner that kind of talks about it came from an external sender. Be careful what you click. So we try to build pretexts around that idea. And a real popular one that we've done is we'll pose as some kind of survey company, like SurveyMonkey, MailChimp, one of those companies that would have mass email marketing. And we'll say that we're partnering with the company. The company approached us to set up a survey where people who participate can win a gift card. However, to keep it fair and to keep people from submitting over and over again, we do ask that they log into the portal. We ask that we pose that the survey is set up inside of their Office 365 infrastructure, something along those lines, so that it kind of prepares them for when they click the link, they're going to be presented with that login screen. And that we've had a lot of success with that style of pretext.
Oh yeah, especially if we do like a must have this survey done by Thursday or something in order to be considered, right? Like you put that date on the end, they have to have it to drive that that immediate demand to do it now. Don't forget about it.
Yeah, creating a sense of urgency is very important, because we've all worked places where you get these kind of emails daily, and a lot of them go straight to the bottom of the pile. You're not going to worry about that. You got more crap to deal with at work. So we try to create a sense of urgency, like Jason said, where we put a fairly tight deadline on it, just to make sure that we do get some form of interaction during the testing window. Another popular one, going back to what I was saying about reading through a company's blog post, you can find that, let's say they received an award and it's only 2 months ago. So you can also say, hey, we are such and such company, and we're putting on a banquet in your honor. And again, we need you to RSVP. So we can set up things like a malicious document that they need to download and execute so that they can fill out the RSVP form. Again, you can also request credentials. It's pretty versatile what you can try to set up in your pretext.
Yeah, and since you're the one that showed me all of the tools that I use today, can you tell us a little bit about what are the tools that we're running with?
Yeah, so a lot of times we'll set it up if we're setting up a document that they've got to fill out for their RSVP. We'll set it up in a Word document with macros. We can set it up with we've even had luck in the past using HTAs. With an HTA, it's like an HTML application. You can generally put or build an HTML page that looks just like a normal submission form on a website, but it can execute code in the background, typically VBA. So as soon as they open it, while they're filling it out, you've already got execution, and you can kind of go from there. So that's a pretty popular one as well. With HTAs, most companies are watching for something like that, but as long as it's obfuscated well enough, a lot of times you can get execution with those.
Nice.
Another pretext idea is just saying, hey, as a company, we're doing this team building exercise. We're doing this, day out, just something along those lines, something to kind of entice them to go ahead and interact. And as along those lines as well, since you are pretending to be the company that they work for, as far as what's set up, you can actually make the login page or the file look like it's hosted somewhere where they would trust, and they would execute the file. And then with tools that we use to capture these credentials, we're pretty fond of EvilGenX. The way this tool works is it basically you host it on a site, and it man in the middle or machine in the middle any kind of interactions you have with a target site. So let's say Office 365, you can proxy their web page to load so it looks like it's loading inside of yours. So if you have a domain name that appears to be very close to something they would trust, then they probably won't scrutinize the URL too much, and they'll go ahead and interact with it. And the great thing about EvilGenX is even if they are logging in with some kind of multi-factor authentication, it'll capture the token that they submitted and the cookies that are returned when they submit. So in the case of Office 365, you can take that cookie, throw it in your browser, and you are now using their session.
Oh yeah, and it's got the ability where you can create, they call them fishlets, but it's basically like a module that you can make yourself using their template to mirror like their VPN login portal or anything similar. So it's a lot of functionality. We love EvilGenX.
Oh yeah. And the great thing is too, especially with the fishlets that are already out there, a lot of them have already been through the ringer, and they usually just work right out of the box. So it's pretty easy to spin something up and have something working pretty quickly while you're building out your pretext. Another thing that Jason and I used here pretty recently is drive-by downloads. We set up some HTML so that it will automatically download the file when the user clicks on it, and then it'll redirect them to a legitimate site. So there's not a whole lot of dwell time to think about, did I just click something malicious? Like in our case, we were posing that we were the IT team trying to get them to run a log me in thing. So as soon as they visited the site, 1 second later, after it started downloading, it would redirect them to the real login, so that they didn't have a lot of time to scrutinize the URL that they had landed on.
Cool.
And we had a lot of success with that.
Yeah.
But as far as pure phishing goes, what kind of things do you suggest for that, Jason?
Yeah, so I've recently been using GoFish a lot. GoFish is it's free. It's a very quick platform to set up and use. And like how Corey kind of talked about earlier, right? Like it's less about building something kind of like low and slow and trying to evade defenses, and really it's more about making a good pretext, and then working with your point of contact to sort of bypass like any sort of secure email gateway they have in place in order to really get in and and test those users. So I've been experimenting a lot with GoFish, and I'm liking it quite a bit. When we talk about sort of the ways to pass those secure email gateways, there's two things that we always want to consider. I always like to pair an allow list where basically they add some kind of SPF record that allows whatever IP address that we're sending mails from. And then I also like to inject a header. And the header that I typically want to inject is x-gofish with the value of here fishy, right? Like it's something that wouldn't appear normally in any sort of email header. So that way, if I get compromised for some reason and my IP address becomes a problem, but the attacker doesn't have that header in place, then I'm good to go. Or then if for some reason an attacker figures out the header, but they're not sending from my IP address, then it's going to get denied. And we're still good to go. That way we can test fairly and get the emails through, but it doesn't put our client into any kind of extra risk, which is important. A question rolled by real quick, so I guess when we talk about like our inspiration for Pretext, and where that comes from, most of it Corey and I kind of just have conversations and we make a lot of it up on the spot. We try things that are less appearing to be like a quote unquote like Nigerian prince scam, and more things that are applicable to whatever company's real life situation is. If it's a healthcare company, we'll talk about healthcare. We'll have like a healthcaresurvey.com domain that we're going to send that email address from. So, you try to play into, realistic things that the company and these people are dealing with.
Yeah, to that point too, when I was talking about building a survey, we try to find the most just marketing term domains that we can buy, something that has a lot of marketing type buzzwords in the domain name, and that usually doesn't get much scrutiny. So,
sir.
Yeah, so once we've gotten past how we're going to get the emails delivered, it's usually we put a lot of consideration into how we're going to execute the campaign. So some things to consider if you are if you know that they have some kind of spam filtering, you definitely have to pay attention to your rate limiting. You have to make sure you're not just blasting too many emails their way, or you'll just get automatically blacklisted or denial listed. Something else that you should definitely try is to go to mailtester.com. That site, you can send them an email and they will return indicators of spam about the email that they received. So if they're looking for things like you didn't put enough in the subject body, you didn't have an unsubscribe link in your marketing looking email, things like that, it'll actually give you indicators that tell you these are the things that a mail filter is probably going to bounce your email on. And then once you've kind of gotten a good idea and you've kind of honed your phishing email, you definitely want to work with the point of contact and make sure that they receive it. They can click the link, they can go through whatever pretext you've built on the other end, and just make sure that that everything's working on their end. You've probably tested it a million times on your end, but you don't want to just send it off into the void if it's a real phishing campaign. Now, if it's more targeted, obviously you're probably not going to get that luxury, but you definitely want to test as much as you can before you send out 300 emails to their employees. But it would probably be a good idea too to cover like, how do we track stats and reporting, Jason?
Yeah, and so while like pretexts are cool, and evasion and intercepting credentials and all that jazz is really cool, we have to show value to our clients, right? And things that our clients would want to see, based on the work that we've done, and so if you're running kind of like one of those just pure phishing campaigns, a lot of that it's going to be, the numbers are going to tell the stories, right? So we want to say, how many total emails that were delivered, how many times links were clicked, and then how many different times people actually entered in credentials and we intercepted multi-factor and so forth, right? That way our client has quantifiable metrics that they can then work on internally to train certain people or whatnot. If we're doing more of like the low and slow, and we're trying to like drop some malware into an environment, definitely get web logs showing that someone actually downloaded. You'll be able to see the external facing IP address downloading from downloading from that website. And then also have that malware call back to some kind of C2. That's probably our goal. And if we do that, we definitely want to grab that screenshot showing that that it actually connected back to us. That way we can show that it was downloaded and it was executed, but maybe it got blocked in the middle, or maybe it didn't. I mean, with those sort of stats, like we can show that.
Yeah, so you want to talk through a couple of phishing stories here?
Yeah, well, tell them. So this is the first one we did together, right? Like, tell them the one where we, I guess, impersonated a charity.
Yeah, so we had a client who they had a blog post about they had raised a pretty substantial amount of money for a local charity. So we got them to sign off on impersonating, kind of setting up to look like that charity, and we sent in emails. Basically, the way we set the email up, we did the survey thing, or I'm sorry, we did a banquet invitation, and we've to make the email believable. We use HTML templates for our emails, so that we can do like a mail send list. And the cool thing about using HTML like that is you can match the color schemes to make it look like the organization that you're impersonating. So we were even went so far as to grab the social media buttons from their website and throw it in the email, so it looked just like a legitimate email from that company. And when we sent it in, we got a lot of interaction out of that.
Oh yeah.
And these guys had received a lot of phishing emails in the past, so they wanted something that would be a little harder to detect, but still not, it still needed to be at least somewhat suspicious. But we got a lot of interaction out of that one.
Oh, yeah.
And the main thing was just how close to a real email from that company it looked.
Yeah. And the best part about it was the company ended up sending out like a message to all of their clients. So like, hey, these guys are highly sophisticated attackers is what they referred to us as, which, it was hilarious. Loved it.
Yeah. Something else that's great when you use those pretexts, especially in the situation like we were just describing, is even though it's explicitly states in the email not to submit over and over again. We would have people who were very concerned that they weren't going to make it into whatever drawing or RSVP situation we had, and they would be submitting like 10, 20 times just with any username and password combination they could think of.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, you'd see the same email 15 times with a different password next to it every time. And so we have all of their passwords for everything in the environment. It's always hilarious to see.
Yeah, so the big thing in those kind of campaigns though is, at the end of the day, we tell them, we're like, look, here's the indicators that should have stood out to your users, and these are the things that you want to train them on so that they don't make this mistake when it counts.
Sure.
So you want to talk to us some about some of your pretext calling and vishing?
Yeah. So I'm gonna run through this a little fast because I think we're running a little behind on time. So I'm gonna kind of pick up the pace a little bit. But yeah, so for whatever reason, I've been really good at vishing over the last like year and a half. So I wanted to do a section on essentially calling with nothing and then turning it into something, because that's been some of the ways that we've been able to jump that perimeter and get access on network. Right, it's really cool thing to have in our toolbox. Kind of how we talked about before, like I start building a pretext based on, I Google search, I look at some news, and I read about the company, but I do a little more heavy diving, in on LinkedIn. Instead of just pulling names like for emails, I'm looking at job titles, and I'm looking at different departments that they might have. Like, do they have an accounting department who's probably not so tech savvy, or HR specific, or like an art department, somebody that wouldn't be in the trenches that knows a ton about tech generally, right? So those are people that I can pretend to be, and I can call the help desk or call someone else and seem lost. And then as I'm looking around LinkedIn, Google, whatever, I'm grabbing phone numbers. Like, I'm trying to find like corporate numbers that I can call and try to get other corporate numbers and eventually get to somewhere internally that I want to be, right? Like maybe that I get 3 or 4 numbers and I can then identify like a number range. Like if they've got 555 1000 and I get a number 555 1005 and 555 1006, there's probably 2 to 4 that I can just call randomly. Those are probably going to be valid numbers for that company.
Yeah, another good thing with that too is if you can get someone to transfer you from inside, that automatically hides your phone number as well.
Absolutely. And then I always ask, like, hey, can you just transfer me over there? Well, in case I get disconnected, can you also give me that direct extension? That way I know how to get back. And that way, I can evade next time if I need to. And then so as I'm figuring this out and getting phone numbers, I really start to put together kind of a pretext, and 2 of the big things I like to capitalize on are do they have a help desk? Like, is there a team that's doing, password resets and fixing VPN logins? Because then I know that I can play that either direction. I can pretend to call the help desk as a user and ask questions, or I can pretend to be on the help desk and call a user, right? I can pretend to be the know-it-all of sorts and coerce information out that way. And then, do people work remotely? Because people are working remotely, that means that there's gateways that are internet facing that I should try to get access to, because if they give me the password that I know they're using to log into a VPN, then I know that I can do that too. So trying to get, figuring out if remote workers is definitely something to check out. So those basics, I'll tie it in with, I'll typically call in and I'll say, hey, I can't access my email, or I can't log in remotely. And I'll start to just like ask random questions as this is going on to pull different information. I'll pretend to be a help desk, and when we did that one of the drive-by downloads, I was calling to be in the help desk and saying, hey, go to this domain and download, remote access solution, company that we made, right? Like, you put some malware in it and I convinced him to go download it and run it. Or try to be someone from a different department needing access to systems. Those are some pretty common pretexts that I use. And And as far as my tooling, there's an app called Hushed that's on Android. I like it because it's unlimited calling for a month, and it costs like $4. I can generate a phone number for any area code that I want. So if I'm pretending to be a person that's in Cincinnati, I can spoof a Cincinnati area code. Or if I know that their headquarters is in Milwaukee, I'll pick an area code from Milwaukee and call that way. And for $5 a month, it's worth its weight in gold. So I guess real quick, so we talk about vishing, and I've seen talks in the past, like people go really in depth into, tone of voice and, the power of persuasion. But I think a lot of that's really heavy for most of what needs to be done. So I know we talked about it a little bit, Corey, but kind of humor me really quick. And you want to pretend to be like a help desk employee, and we can kind of talk through this process real quick?
Sure. Sure. So we'll start from you calling in. I'll just say, Red Siege Help Desk, how may I help you?
Yeah, and so quick pause. I call this the play dumb, play smart maneuver. So the first phone call, I'm gonna play dumb. Hey Corey, I'm kind of aggravated. Last guy I talked to wasn't very helpful. I'm working remotely, but I can't log into my VPN. I'm a little new. Can you help me out? Like I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, so just open up your Cisco VPN client. You'll put in the username that we emailed you a few days ago and your password, and you should be able to connect right in.
Okay. I made my password, right? And I know there's like a password for VPN, a password for Windows, but they're different lengths and stuff. Is this the one that has like the capital letter and it's 12 characters? I'm trying to refresh my memory here.
Yeah, this one's actually 16 characters. You have to have a capital letter, a lowercase letter, and a number, and a special character at some point in the password.
Okay. I missed the special character. I bet that's what the problem was. All right, cool. Man, hey, I appreciate it. Is there a lot of you all that work there? Like if I call back, am I going to get you? Is there a chance I'm going to get the dude that wasn't so friendly?
Well, there's actually 7 of us on staff tonight, so there's a chance you'll get me. But I can give you my direct extension if you'd like to call me back. But if you call the main number, it's a chance of getting anyone.
Okay, well, cool, man. I really appreciate you. Can I get you like your boss's name? I'm gonna send him a quick, hey, thanks Corey for doing a good job email. Is that cool?
Yeah, that's great. My boss's name is Tim Medin.
Okay, and is he like Tim.Medin? Like, is that his email, or what's the format for that?
Yeah. His email is a little different than the rest of ours. I know a lot of ours follow a different format, but yeah, that's the format you would need to get a hold of him.
Okay, cool. Thanks a lot, Corey. Have a good day. Boom.
Hey, thanks.
Yep. So first round of calling, right? Like I played dumb and I got a lot of information out. I know they use a Cisco VPN. I've got their password policy. I know who the help desk supervisor is, and I also have an email address format as so I picked up a good amount of information in what was seemingly a very innocuous conversation. Like other than that, that I'm me and that Corey's pretending, this is the exact thing that I do on most of my phishing engagements. So I've got my information. I'm gonna call back. I'm pretending to be somebody else. Boom, 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 boom. Phone rings.
Red Siege Help Desk, how may I help you?
Hey, Corey. My name's John. I work over. I'm on the database team here. I need some help. I'm trying to log into my Cisco VPN. I think I missed my reset period or something. I'm using the 16 character password. I made sure I've got my capital, and my special character. I was wondering if you could reset my password for me.
Well, we might have to get a little more information from you.
Okay.
Can you tell us the last 4 of your social?
Okay, so last time I had to do this, I know the last 4 of my social, right? The last time I had to do this, it didn't work, and they had to escalate it to Tim, I think his name is. And Tim had to go in, and honestly, it took like 3 hours to do. Is there any way that you can help me out? Like I got a report, it's got to be done in like 20 minutes. Go ahead and just send me a ticket. We can verify later. Reset this password for me, and you'd be making my day.
We don't normally do this, but yeah, we're pretty swamped tonight too. So yeah, we can go ahead and knock this out.
Awesome. Corey, dude, I really appreciate you. Could you make it, password, 123 exclamation point?
Sure. All right. It is set.
Awesome. Well, cool. I'll let you get back to your day, man. Have a good rest of the day. And like I said, I appreciate it. See ya.
Hey, thank you.
Yep. And so the second call, play smart, right? Like it seemed like I knew what I was talking about. I knew about my Cisco VPN. I knew about the password policy. I knew who his boss was. Ideally this wouldn't be Corey both times. Like I'd have called back and got somebody else, so I'm pretending to be somebody else, but I know who the boss is. It's great. So you win that favor. I'm not doing any kind of crazy, like hearing his voice and trying to interpret how he's feeling. I'm just saying what I know because somebody already told me. It's a great way to win confidence and act like you've done this before and you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you've had some pretty interesting experiences too when they ask for that secondary information, haven't you?
Dude, so a little bit of confidence goes a very long way. I'm doing an engagement and it was actually my first phone call. I was still on like the play dumb section. It went a little further than I thought it would. And they're like, "Yes, sir. Could you verify the last four of your social?" And I, with the most confidence I could muster, was like 2196. And they were like, "Whoa, well, I'm pretty sure you know your social security number. Yeah, that works. I'll go ahead and reset it for you." Right? Because part of it is like the audacity of how are you going to tell me what my social security number is, right? And the other part is the confidence. Like you just sell it, I didn't mutter it. I said, this is what it is. And they just, they're probably getting 500 phone calls a day. They just want to get it and go. So we try to take advantage of that. What else is really good? Yeah, so we talked about the drive-by download earlier, right? And I did it the reverse. I pretended to be a help desk person, and I called the same way. I said, "Hey, Betty or John or whoever I called." I said, "I'm with the help desk. We've had some issues with your machine here. I know it's never a good it's never a good day when we call you. Do you have a couple minutes?" And their response was, "Oh my gosh, my computer has reset like 3 times today." And in that moment, like I knew I was in, you're right, because they're having problems. Oh well, yeah, I saw your reset. Here's what we do. Go to remotesoftware.com/download real quick and get our remote desktop software. I'm just going to go ahead and fix you right now. And so Corey had done like that drive-by download where it went to a fake page, it downloaded, our malware, and then immediately forwarded to like gotomeeting.com. So what they saw was a quick flash, and then as the same time their download window pops up, they've got a GoToMeeting page. So the page looks legit, but what it actually grabbed was Corey's payload, right? I mean, from the time he said make this call and go, it was like 6 minutes, and we had a connection back to our C2 server. It was awesome teamwork. Awesome teamwork.
It looks like we had a question come in. I may have missed it, but do you have any "we don't cross the line" phishing campaigns that you will not do, like COVID alerts in your area, for example? First one that comes to mind is accusing somebody of something like sexual harassment, because that one, as soon as they find out it's fake, usually the employees are pretty upset. So a lot of times when you start threatening their jobs, we try to avoid those unless the client is just insistent on something like that. Do you have any that you can think of, Jason?
I mean, anything that threatens a negative consequence, I really want to stay away from, right? Like how we talked about how, I want you to help me. I want you to hang up that phone call and feel good, even though you messed up. I don't want that ever looming feeling of dread, like, oh, I messed up, I lost my job, and that's why I've got to help this person. That, I don't want to leave people feeling that way. Like I have more integrity than that. I don't like that. There's so many different ways that we can win without making somebody feel bad.
Well, and you don't want them to go through something like, if you are threatening their job, they've already went through the thought process of, oh crap, this is bad, and then they find out that the whole thing was a lie that their company did against them. That seems kind of crappy. So we try to avoid those kinds of pretexts at all costs.
Yeah. So kind of like the next big section, right? Let's talk about some physical stuff. I'm gonna let you lead this one. You've definitely got some cool engagements. I'm asking questions along the way. Like, what you got for us when it comes to physical engagements here?
Yeah, so with physical, just like vishing and phishing, we start off with OSINT. You can get a massive amount of recon done just with something like Google Maps. A lot of times, if it happens that the Google truck passed along the building, you can kind of see points of entry. Sometimes you get pictures of employees. A lot of employees wear their badge on a lanyard around their neck or on their waist. So sometimes, if the photo is clean enough, you can actually start kind of picturing what their badges look like, what kind of badge readers they're going to have. So if you do have to do a pretext where you are posing as an employee, these things will get you in the door once you've managed to bypass whatever security features they have. Another bit of recon that we do, we look at social media, same thing. We're looking for what kind of badges they have. Sometimes you can actually tell what kind of badge reader they have just by the badge card. And it's wild how many times you will see somebody with keys or an RFID badge stuck to their waist in a group photo, and you already know what kind of badge reader they have without ever taking a look at the building. And also on their social media, you're going to look for pretext ideas. You're going to look for, do they have some kind of celebration coming up? Do they have some kind of award ceremony, some kind of employee day out? A lot of these things can get you in the right place at the right time to start working towards, a pretext that'll get you in the building.
And so, who are some people that you can impersonate along the way, right? Like, who do you pretend to be when you're trying to get into, these buildings?
Well, a lot of times you try not to impersonate anyone who, let's say it's a company that's pretty small, kind of tight knit. You're probably not going to impersonate anybody that actually works in the building that you're at. You definitely want to try and impersonate, in that case, like a third party service. You want to impersonate somebody that they would expect to see coming through the building without giving it too much thought. So if they are a company who has a lot of satellite locations, then yeah, you could always try and impersonate an employee from another office. You would definitely want to try and impersonate anyone who they would probably just kind of glance, maybe ask you who you are, and send you on your way. Once you do make it in the building with whatever pretext you use, most likely, if they have security guards on site, that's who's going to stop you. Any kind of security personnel. The front desk people may interrogate you a little bit too, especially if you say you're with the ISP and you need to get in the server room, for example. But if you claim to be like an IT person, and you start name dropping some names that you found during your recon phase, a lot of times that can get you past the front desk. And then other employees are likely to question you, but a lot of times, in my experience, just walking in broad daylight, a lot of people will look at you, but no one wants to be the first person to come up and really start interrogating you. So especially if you can catch them at a busy time of day, like right after lunch, a lot of times you can just walk through the place. As long as you look like you know where you're going and you belong there, most people will just kind of glance at you and go on with their day. Once you do make it into the building, there's a couple things that we use to get payload execution. The first being like a rubber ducky. That's like a little HID device that acts like a keyboard and types out commands a lot faster than a human could. You just plug the USB device in. As soon as it recognizes it as a device, it types out your preset commands, and we would use those to download like say a payload or some kind of malicious document, open it, execute it, close everything down. So, just kind of a quick aside story. Was going against a financial institution where the pretext was we were looking to open an account. While I'm sitting at the desk across from, the person in charge of that account, soon as she turned around, the back of her computer was exposed to me. Just plug a rubber ducky in, and then, try and keep her distracted long enough for your payload to execute. And we, I have had some success with that in the past. The other thing that we try to get is some kind of Dropbox. So something that'll bypass any kind of network access controls that they have. A lot of times you want to hide these somewhere, or I have seen people who have actually built Raspberry Pis into like a power strip. Power strip that has the surge protector where you plug a network cable in and plug one back out to the computer. And doing something like that, like nobody's ever going to mess with that. But I mean, you can go as simple as having a label maker and just put property of IT, do not touch, something like that. Plug it in anywhere. As long as it's not just sitting out like an eyesore, nobody's going to mess with it. And a lot of times, they're just going to assume that it's something that probably shouldn't be moved anyway.
Yeah, I heard a story of somebody around Christmas time. They made like USB trees with sticks in them, and so people were plugging them in to like light up their computer. Yeah, and it had rubber duckies inside the Christmas tree. That was nice.
It looks like we had a question come in. How long did it take you to prepare for your first physical? If I worked at Red Siege, what would be the steps the leadership would take to prepare me for my first physical assessment? So for my first physical, I shadowed somebody who had been doing this for a while. And so while I was there, it always helps on a physical engagement if you can have more than one person. That way, if the first person gets burned, you still have a chance to get in without being spotted again. But as far as how long it took us to prepare, I mean, he already had a lot of the methodology, in place. He just knew the check boxes that had to be hit for us to get our access. So as far as how long it took us to prepare, I would probably say it took, I don't know, it took a couple weeks of making sure that we had everything in place so that, if we were caught, the cops aren't going to get involved, or if the cops do get involved, we have verifiable proof of who we are and why we're there. So as far as the steps that leadership would need to take, that you need an ironclad get out of jail free letter. That needs to be something with multiple contacts at the company who know what you're doing there, and who can vouch for you at any time of day. Because I will say on most of the physicals I've been on, I have gotten in after hours way more than I've gotten in during the day. And, you trip some silent alarm, you don't want to be standing there telling the cops, that, no, this is legit, when, they hear that all the time. So make sure you have a good get out of jail free letter. And then I would read up on physical security devices that you may need. Badge cloners, security control bypasses, like under the door tools, that kind of thing. You definitely just want to have enough to know that you have more than one way in.
See how much has increased work from home, telework changed things. I imagine there's a lot of places that have people rarely come into the office. It may be easier to slip past the front desk. Yes, I will say that we haven't had a lot of physical tests come up, mostly because there's no one in offices, so offices don't need to be tested. But I'll say the lack of people going out is kind of a double-edged sword. Like, it may be easier to get in because there's lighter security and less people paying attention. But also, if there is someone paying attention, like a security guard, there's less chance of slipping in with 50 other people in the 9 a.m. rush, because I might be the only one trying to go into the building between 9 and 9:30. So it's kind of a double-edged sword in that sense.
Yeah, especially if you're walking in broad daylight, you don't want to stick out. You want to blend into all the other noise that's going on there. So as far as the get out of jail free letter goes, though, another bit of social engineering that I like to do is I carry the real one, but I also carry a fake one. And on the fake one, it'll have a different company, it'll have different contacts, but in bold letters at the top, it says, "Good job on detecting the social engineering and physical security assessment. Please do not tell anyone else. We're going to attempt to come in again." And it basically is trying to make sure that they don't run back to their desk and blast out an email to everybody saying, "Oh yeah, this dude just walked in the door, and like when I questioned him, he's trying to slip out." So you definitely want to try and downplay what you're doing as best as possible and as quietly as possible. I saw a question go by. Let's see.
Yeah, do you? I guess you can answer this one. Do you avoid government agency physical security engagements? I ask because of the coal fire situation in Iowa.
So, the one thing I will say about government agencies is a lot of them can be. There's definitely a lot more police involved. There's definitely a lot more expectation of heightened security. So we don't necessarily avoid them, but it does run you into a lot more red tape, kind of like as you mentioned, the coal fire guys ran into. So I wouldn't say that we avoid them, but I would say a lot more consideration has to go into those engagements before we would take on something like that. So last thing I wanted to talk about is once you do get in, the most important thing, like Jason said, you can go super in depth on body language, on, down to how you look at people, how you present yourself. The most important thing is most of the people who are there, they don't care. They're just there to do their job. And it's rare that you're going to get questioned by anybody besides security or maybe just that one stickler employee. But while you're there, you definitely want to act the part. So if your pretext is to be an IT person, act like that's what you're doing. Go straight for the copiers, go straight for the server room. I've had instances where, I walked up to the server room, waited for an employee to be walking by, started patting my, pockets, and I was like, "Oh crap, I left my badge back." And then you go find somebody in the building who will literally just go badge you into the server room. But you just have to act the part. Another pretext that a guy I've worked with in the past did was he called ahead of time, acting like a salesman for pest control services. And then what he did was he managed to talk to them until he got them to tell him who their current pest control service was. And then he went so far as to look them up online, find pictures of their employees, and saw that they wore red polos and khaki pants while they were there. So that's what he did. He bought a red polo and some khaki pants and one of those pump sprayers from like Lowe's Hardware or whatever. And then we literally, he walked into the front desk and just walked right past him, started acting like he was spraying, and started walking around the building, and even got an employee to basically escort him around. So he could just walk around the building pretending to be a pest control. But because he did the research and acted the part and knew exactly who their pest control service was, just basically walked in and owned the place.
Nice.
Another part you can act out is, you're either, like I've said before, an employee from another office or a new employee. Just play dumb. If somebody catches you, you just, "Oh man, I'm from the, I don't know, the headquarter office, and I just, every time I come to one of these places, I never know my way around." Just like Jason said earlier, you play the part and you play it up, playing dumb until most people want to help you, so they'll jump at the chance to do whatever it is to make your life easier while you're there. And the final thing that I would say is, have your story ready to go. So if you are playing this pretext, you need to think about some of the contingencies, like, I'm in this building at 2 a.m. There's a good chance that somebody is going to come in here at some point and ask me what's going on. So you need a story ready to go for the security guard. Another story, got into an office space. We're digging around at 2 a.m. We found a drawer full of badge cards, and they were in the IT section of that office building. So, we literally took every one of those badge cards, walked over to the server room, and just started doing them one by one. Well, of course, 10 minutes later, we got a security guard coming up, asking us just, what we think we're doing. And the guy that I'm with, he wheels around just right on the spot, and he says, listen, I wanted to do this upgrade at lunchtime, but the powers that be, we all know them. They of course don't want me doing this until midnight, because they know absolutely there will be no employees online at that time. So, and of course, I drive an hour and a half and I leave my badge at home, and I need in that server room. He said, is there any way you can let me in? And the guy said, well, yeah, I mean, I got my badge right here, and literally just went over there, badged him in. And so at that point, we said, well, we're going to have to go in and out. Is there any way, we can leave this door open? Is there an alarm that's going to go off because it's open? And the guy said, no. Yeah, here, I'll go put the doorstop in for you. So, and then he told us, he said, well, you fellas have a good night. He said, I'm real sorry. I hate working the graveyard shift, more power to you. And we were like, yeah, yes, sir. And just walked off, and we were in. I mean, that's all it took. But because he had that story just ready to go as soon as that guy come up on us, like, I mean, we were in there. So, yeah, I would say the only other story I wanted to throw out there, we had a physical assessment. It was these doctors' offices. There was 5 of them. And the night before, we managed to get into one by bypassing one of their security controls. While we were there, we thought, we'll leave a Raspberry Pi running here, and we're going to leave Responder running, so when everybody comes in the morning, we're going to catch all kinds of hashes that'll give us credentials, and we can start hacking away from our hotel room. Well, the next morning, we had to do another physical portion of that, and we come walking in, and we had duplicated their badge format, but it had our pictures and our names on it. We come walking in, we get to the front desk, and we can see the ladies at the front desk are already upset, and we say, hey, we're with IT, and they're like, oh, thank God you're here. None of our printers are working this morning. Apparently, Responder had caused all of their printers to stop working. And so the guy that I was with, of course, he just pops right into his story. He goes, we made a change last night. I am so sorry. I'll take the heat for that one. Give me 5 minutes. I'll go fix it. He knew right where the Raspberry Pi was, so he goes straight in there, unplugs the Raspberry Pi, and then the printer's just like printing stuff for like an hour because they've been sitting there messing with it. But because we basically created a problem and then pretended to be IT, they just let us all over the building. We got into
you've won all the trust. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Because at that point we had already gotten over the fence. We were basically golden. And then we even asked them to call ahead to the next location so that they could say we were on our way. And the next place, we just literally walked right past the front desk. We were golden from that point on.
Awesome.
It looks like Derelict asked, what methodology and checkboxes did the person Corey was shadowing on his first assessment follow? So he had taken some training from the Red Team Alliance on physical security bypasses. He had also taken some social engineering courses from the socialengineer.org guys. So for him, he kind of built out the methodology that he felt like would get us in. So basically, we would try a lot of different things like tailgating. We would try to come up with as many pretexts as we could to get in. We would try things like just waiting till people are going in at 9 a.m. and just trying to get in the middle of the crowd to get kind of shuffled in. Do that around lunchtime, around 5, 6 o'clock. And then he also had something for us to do where we would wait until the cleaning crew showed up. So while the cleaning crew was there, we could pretend to be an employee. A lot of times, if we did manage to get in the building, we would just go hide out somewhere, and we would tape doors so that we could get back in later. But basically, his methodology was a lot of something that he kind of came up with based on the trainings that he had taken. So in those instances, I would say it would just take a little bit of research ahead of time, but as far as building a methodology goes, I haven't seen a lot of them listed online, but if I do find some, I'll definitely drop them in the Discord.
Cool. I know I didn't put this on our to-do list here, but I do want to close out on one point before we call JCon back. And one thing that I do really want to I guess harp on, right, is what are the things that we report back to our customers or our clients, and what's the goal here, right? Like, I know we talked about some phishing numbers. The number one thing that I want to point out about reporting, right, is, we're not out to crush any employee. Like, the goal is not to call out Betty or John or Tim or whatever for falling to my vishing or a well done phishing email, right? Like that doesn't make people feel good. They're already going to be down because they know they got. So the idea is not to punish an employee. The idea is to point out places where training, can be implemented. So ideally, when I'm doing a report, I try to not list out the users that we got specifically. Like, I'll throw out some quantifiable numbers. I will say that I got a help desk person, or I got someone in finance, and then I'll try to forget who that person was. That way when they ask, I can say I don't know. Because the goal should not be to punish an employee. It should be to make all employees better.
Yeah, I mean, especially in the humdrum of daily work, you get a million emails a day. A lot of times with phishing or even vishing, you've just got your head down doing your job. You can't blame somebody for just going along with whatever it took to get back to work. So a lot of times, or most of the time, we are trying to point out to the security people, hey, this is a teachable moment.
Sure. Well, cool. I think that wraps us. I think JCon's going to come back in and give away some shirts and field some final questions. And he took himself off mute all by himself. All by
myself. I saw the little marker. I was like, ain't going to get me. Well, guys, again, thank you. This was a really good talk. I love hearing you guys talk about social engineering, and there's a lot of really, really fun stuff that you guys went over. Appreciate all of the questions. Appreciate all of the people who had things to say. We appreciate you all of us joining us here for the Siegecast Practical People Hacking. This will be up on YouTube, ready for you to review later on. I guarantee people are going to come back to that Jason Downey, Corey role play. That was really good, and I guarantee that's going to be something that people come back to. Great stories. That is it for this conversation. Thanks, Corey. Thanks, Jason. And wait, hold on, we got Tim's here now. Tim, anything else you want to add to this conversation, Tim, before we jump out of here?
No, that was good stuff. The only thing I'd like to add with the just to come back to the one tiny piece with the things not to do. Jason hit that spot on. You don't want to leave the organization and the people in a worse spot than they were before. You don't want to undermine the trust. You don't want to use fear. I mean, check out the GoDaddy scenario where they tried to send out a phishing email, internal phishing email with bonuses, and then deliver the bonuses. Guess what? Everyone hates security now. So, Jason was way more succinct than I was, but no, it's great stuff.
Well, again, we appreciate everybody being here, and we will see you at the next Siegecast. Thank you very much.